Hello, and welcome to another peaceful journey through boring history for sleep. Before we begin our gentle exploration tonight, I would love for you to take a moment to subscribe and give this video a like if you enjoy these restful historical tales. Your support helps these stories reach others who need a peaceful escape into slumber. I also invite you to leave a comment below telling me where you're watching from and what time it is for you right now. There is something beautifully connecting about knowing that people from all corners of the world are sharing this quiet moment together, each settling into their own cozy space as we prepare to drift into dreams. Now, let yourself settle deeply into your bed, feeling the soft embrace of your pillows cradling your head and the gentle weight of your blankets wrapping around you like a warm, protective cocoon. Notice how your body naturally begins to release the tension of the day as you sink deeper into your comfortable resting place. The air around you is perfectly still and peaceful, carrying with it the subtle scent of nighttime calm and the promise of restful sleep. Feel the gentle rhythm of your breathing as it begins to slow and deepen, each exhale carrying away any lingering thoughts or worries from your day. Allow your eyelids to grow heavy as you prepare to journey with me into the distant past, where time moves slowly and the mundane details of medieval life will gently guide you toward the most peaceful sleep. Our story today begins in the misty dawn of medieval Europe, where the first pale light of morning filters through the narrow windows of stone cottages and grand castles alike. The year is somewhere deep in the Middle Ages, perhaps the 12th or 13th century, when life moved at the gentle pace of the seasons, and the simple rhythms of daily existence held a comforting predictability that modern life has long forgotten. In this distant time, the very concept of cleanliness and personal care carried meanings so different from our own that they seem almost like tales from another world entirely. Imagine, if you will, a small medieval village nestled in a valley between rolling green hills, where morning mist clings to the thatched roofs and the air carries the earthy scent of wood smoke and damp soil. The villagers are beginning to stir in their simple homes, and their morning routines are about to unfold in ways that would seem wonderfully strange to our modern sensibilities. The medieval understanding of hygiene was not born from ignorance, but from a completely different worldview about the human body, health, and the very nature of cleanliness itself. In the home of a prosperous merchant, a woman named Marguerite rises with the dawn and begins her daily ablutions in the manner that has been passed down through generations of her family. She moves to a small wooden table where a ceramic basin sits filled with cold water that was drawn from the well the evening before. With practiced movements, she dips her hands into the cool water and brings it to her face, washing away the remnants of sleep with gentle splashes. This simple act of face washing was considered one of the most important hygiene practices of the medieval period, and it was performed with an almost ritualistic reverence that spoke to its perceived importance in maintaining both physical and spiritual cleanliness. The water she uses is not the clear, treated liquid we know today, but rather the natural spring water that bubbles up from deep beneath the earth, carrying with it the mineral taste of stones and soil. Medieval people believed that different types of water possessed different properties, and the choice of water for washing was often as carefully considered as the choice of herbs for healing. Some believed that water drawn at dawn held special purifying qualities, while others preferred rainwater collected in wooden barrels for its supposed softness and gentleness on the skin. As Marguerite continues her morning routine, she reaches for a small piece of soap that sits beside her basin, a luxury item that few in her village can afford. Medieval soap was a far different substance from what we know today, often made from animal fats and wood ash, creating a harsh, gritty texture that was as likely to irritate the skin as it was to cleanse it. The soap-making process was a complex craft that required specialized knowledge, and the resulting product was often brown or gray in color, with a texture that was more like a rough paste than the smooth bars we are accustomed to using. The wealthy merchant class, to which Marguerite belongs, had access to imported soaps from regions like Castile in Spain or Marcia in France, where skilled artisans had perfected the art of creating more refined cleansing products. These soaps were often scented with precious oils and herbs, creating a sensory experience that was considered both luxurious and beneficial for health. The scent of lavender, rosemary, or rose petals would linger on the skin, serving not only as a pleasant fragrance, but also as a ward against the evil humors that medieval people believed could cause illness and moral corruption. But for most medieval people, soap was a rare and precious commodity, and daily cleansing was accomplished through other means entirely. The common folk of the village would begin their day with a simple ritual of washing their hands and face with plain water, sometimes enhanced with herbs or flower petals that had been steeped in the water overnight. Chamomile flowers were particularly prized for their soothing properties, and many families would keep small gardens where they grew the herbs and flowers that would serve their daily cleansing needs. The medieval understanding of the body was deeply influenced by the ancient Greek theory of the four humors, which taught that health and cleanliness were matters of maintaining the proper balance between blood, phlegm, yellow bile, and black bile. This theory suggested that excessive bathing could actually be harmful, as it might wash away the natural oils and essences that kept the body's humors in proper alignment. Therefore, the medieval approach to hygiene was one of careful moderation, avoiding both excessive filth and excessive cleanliness with equal vigilance. In the castle that overlooks our peaceful village, the lord and lady of the manor are beginning their own morning routines, which involve ceremonies of cleansing that are as much about social status as they are about personal hygiene. The lady's chamber contains a magnificent wooden tub carved from a single piece of oak and lined with linen cloth to prevent splinters. This tub is filled with warm water that has been heated over the kitchen fires and carried up the narrow stone stairs by a procession of servants, each bucket representing a significant expenditure of labor and fuel. The preparation of a proper bath for the nobility was an elaborate affair that could take hours to complete. The water was often enhanced with herbs and flowers that had been carefully selected for their therapeutic and aromatic properties. Rose petals were scattered on the surface of the water, creating a fragrant carpet that would release its scent as the bather settled into the warm embrace of the tub. Sprigs of mint and lavender were tied in small bundles and hung from the sides of the tub, their essential oils slowly infusing the water with their healing properties. But even among the wealthy, full-body bathing was not a daily occurrence. The medieval calendar was punctuated by special bathing occasions that corresponded with religious holidays, seasonal changes, and important social events. A noble might take a full bath before attending a wedding, celebrating a religious feast, or preparing for a long journey. These baths were events in themselves, often accompanied by music, fine wines, and the attendance of skilled servants who would assist with the elaborate rituals of cleansing and preparation. The servants who attended these bathing ceremonies were often specialists in their own right, skilled in the arts of mixing bathing waters, selecting appropriate herbs, and performing the gentle massage techniques that were believed to promote both physical health and spiritual well-being. They would begin by testing the temperature of the water with their hands, ensuring that it was neither too hot nor too cold, but perfectly balanced to soothe the body without causing shock or discomfort. The ideal bathing temperature was described in medieval texts as being similar to the warmth of fresh milk or the gentle heat of sunshine on a spring morning. Once the water was deemed perfect, the bather would be assisted into the tub with great ceremony and care. The servants would support the bather's arms and guide their descent into the warm water, ensuring that the transition was as smooth and comfortable as possible. As the bathers settled into the tub, the servants would begin the process of washing, using soft cloths made from the finest linen or even silk, depending on the wealth and status of their employer. The washing process itself was conducted with a reverence that bordered on the religious. Each part of the body was cleansed in a specific order, beginning with the hands and face, then moving to the arms and shoulders, and finally to the torso and legs. This systematic approach was believed to ensure that the cleansing was both thorough and spiritually meaningful, as each area of the body was associated with different aspects of the soul and character. The medieval understanding of skin care was deeply rooted in the belief that the condition of the skin reflected the state of the soul. Clear, smooth skin was seen as a sign of moral purity and divine favor, while blemishes, roughness, or unusual coloring were often interpreted as manifestations of inner corruption or spiritual imbalance. Therefore, the care of the skin was not merely a matter of vanity or comfort, but a serious spiritual responsibility that required constant attention and appropriate rituals. Women of the upper classes would spend considerable time and resources on maintaining their skin, using a variety of treatments that were based on both medical knowledge and folk wisdom that had been passed down through generations. One popular treatment involved creating a paste from ground almonds, honey, and rose water, which was applied to the face and hands and left to dry before being gently removed with warm water. This mixture was believed to soften the skin, remove impurities, and impart a healthy glow that was considered highly desirable. Another common skin treatment involved the use of various animal fats and oils, often combined with herbs and spices, to create complex unguents and salves. Bear fat was particularly prized for its supposed ability to prevent wrinkles and maintain youthful skin, while goose fat was used to protect the skin from the harsh effects of wind and cold weather. These treatments were often applied in the evening before sleep, allowing the skin to absorb the beneficial properties throughout the night. The medieval approach to hair care was equally elaborate and ritualistic. Long, flowing hair was considered a sign of beauty and nobility, and maintaining it required considerable time and effort. Women would spend hours each day brushing their hair with combs made from ivory, bone, or precious metals, each stroke carefully executed to distribute the natural oils from the scalp throughout the length of the hair. The brushing process was often accompanied by the application of various oils and treatments designed to promote growth, shine, and health. One of the most treasured hair treatments of the medieval period involved the creation of elaborate washing mixtures that combined various natural ingredients in precise proportions that had been perfected over generations. A popular recipe called for mixing crushed egg yolks with honey, ale, and a selection of herbs, such as rosemary, sage, and chamomile. This mixture would be worked through the hair with patient, methodical movements, each strand receiving careful attention as the nourishing ingredients were distributed from root to tip. The process could take several hours to complete, during which time the woman would often sit in a sunny window or beside a warm hearth, allowing the gentle heat to help the treatment penetrate more deeply into the hair shaft. After the treatment had been allowed to work its magic for the appropriate amount of time, the hair would be rinsed with successive bowls of warm water, each rinse removing more of the treatment while leaving behind the beneficial effects. The final rinse was often enhanced with vinegar made from apples or grapes, which was believed to add shine and manageability to the hair. The acidic nature of the vinegar would close the hair cuticles, creating a smooth surface that reflected light beautifully and felt silky to the touch. This technique was so effective that it remained popular well into the modern era, long after the medieval period had passed into history. The drying process for medieval hair was an elaborate ritual in itself, involving careful positioning near sources of warmth and the gentle combing of the damp strands to prevent tangling and promote even drying. Women would often sit beside their hearth fires, slowly turning their heads to ensure that all sections of their hair received equal exposure to the warm air. The scent of the herbs and oils from their hair treatments would mingle with the wood smoke from the fire, creating a soothing aromatic atmosphere that was both relaxing and therapeutic. During the drying process, it was common for women to engage in quiet activities such as embroidery, reading religious texts, or simply contemplating the peaceful flames of the fire. This time was considered sacred, a period of reflection and preparation that allowed the mind to settle into a state of calm meditation. The repetitive motion of combing the hair, combined with the warmth of the fire and the gentle fragrances surrounding them, created a naturally relaxing environment that promoted both physical and mental well-being. The medieval understanding of dental hygiene was perhaps one of the most fascinating aspects of their approach to personal care. Without the benefit of modern dental knowledge, medieval people developed their own methods for maintaining oral health that were based on careful observation and centuries of accumulated wisdom. The most common approach to dental care involved the use of various abrasive substances that were rubbed against the teeth using fingers or small pieces of cloth. These substances included crushed mint leaves, powdered charcoal, salt, and even finely ground pumice stone. The process of cleaning teeth was typically performed in the morning as part of the daily routine that prepared the body and soul for the day ahead. A person would take a small amount of their chosen cleaning substance and work it against their teeth using circular motions, paying particular attention to areas where food particles might have accumulated. The abrasive action was believed to remove harmful deposits and freshen the breath, while the various ingredients were thought to provide additional benefits for oral health. Mint leaves were particularly prized for their ability to freshen breath and create a pleasant taste in the mouth. The leaves would be crushed between the fingers to release their essential oils, then rubbed directly against the teeth and gums. The cooling sensation of the mint was considered both refreshing and therapeutic, and many people would carry small bundles of fresh mint leaves with them throughout the day, chewing on them occasionally to maintain fresh breath and promote oral health. Salt was another popular dental cleaning agent, valued for its antiseptic properties and its ability to remove stains and deposits from the teeth. The salt used for dental care was often the same coarse sea salt that was used for preserving food, and its rough texture provided the abrasive action that was believed necessary for proper cleaning. The process of rubbing salt against the teeth was not particularly pleasant, but it was considered an important part of maintaining overall health and preventing the tooth decay that was so common in medieval times. Charcoal powder was perhaps the most unusual dental cleaning substance used in medieval times, but it was highly effective at removing stains and whitening teeth. The charcoal was made by burning specific types of wood in a controlled manner that produced a fine, black powder with excellent absorbent properties. This powder would be mixed with water or wine to create a paste that could be applied to the teeth, where it would work to draw out impurities and create a clean, bright surface. The preparation of charcoal for dental use was a skilled process that required careful attention to detail. The wood had to be burned at just the right temperature for the proper amount of time, and the resulting charcoal had to be ground to exactly the right consistency. Too coarse, and it would damage the teeth and gums. Too fine, and it would not provide the necessary abrasive action. The best charcoal for dental use was said to be made from young birch wood that had been harvested in the spring when the sap was rising. Medieval people also understood the importance of maintaining healthy gums, and they developed various treatments and techniques for promoting gum health. One popular method involved massaging the gums with the fingers, using gentle circular motions to stimulate blood flow and promote healing. This massage was often performed using various herbal preparations that were believed to strengthen the gums and prevent disease. A common gum treatment involved creating a paste from crushed sage leaves, honey, and a small amount of wine. This mixture would be applied to the gums and massaged in gently, allowing the therapeutic properties of the herbs to penetrate the tissue. Sage was particularly valued for its antiseptic and healing properties, while honey was believed to provide nourishment and promote rapid healing of any small cuts or irritations. That the wine used in these treatments was not the refined beverage we know today, but rather a rough, often sour liquid that was produced by local monasteries and manor houses. This wine was believed to have purifying properties that made it ideal for medicinal use, and its acidic nature was thought to help cleanse the mouth and prevent the growth of harmful bacteria. The combination of sage, honey, and wine created a treatment that was both effective and pleasant to use, with a complex flavor that was both herbal and sweet. Another important aspect of medieval oral care involved the use of various herbs and spices to freshen breath and promote oral health. Fennel seeds were particularly popular, as they provided a sweet, licorice-like flavor that was considered very pleasant. These seeds would be chewed slowly, allowing their essential oils to coat the mouth and throat, creating a fresh, clean sensation that could last for hours. Cloves were another favorite breath freshener, prized for their strong, spicy flavor and their natural antiseptic properties. A single clove could be held in the mouth and sucked on slowly, releasing its oils gradually throughout the day. The numbing effect of cloves was also appreciated for its ability to soothe toothaches and gum pain, making them a valuable addition to the medieval medicine chest. The medieval approach to body odor was quite different from our modern understanding, as they believed that certain natural scents were not only acceptable, but actually beneficial for health. The human body was thought to produce various emanations that reflected the state of the internal humors, and these natural scents were carefully observed and interpreted as indicators of health and character. However, this did not mean that medieval people were indifferent to pleasant fragrances, and they developed sophisticated methods for enhancing their natural scent. One popular method for improving body odor involved the use of various aromatic herbs and flowers that were sewn into small cloth sachets and worn close to the body. These sachets, known as pomanders, were filled with combinations of dried lavender, rose petals, mint leaves, and other fragrant materials that would release their scent slowly throughout the day. The sachets were often worn hanging from the belt or tucked into the folds of clothing, where the warmth of the body would activate the fragrances and create a pleasant aromatic cloud around the wearer. The creation of pomanders was considered an art form in itself, requiring careful selection of materials and skilled craftsmanship to produce sachets that were both beautiful and functional. The cloth used for pomanders was often made from fine silk or linen, and it was sometimes decorated with elaborate embroidery or precious stones. The contents of the pomander were chosen not only for their pleasant scent, but also for their supposed protective properties against disease and evil influences. Medieval people also made use of various perfumed oils and unguents that were applied directly to the skin to enhance natural scent and provide additional therapeutic benefits. These preparations were often made from combinations of animal fats and plant oils that had been infused with aromatic herbs and spices. The process of creating these scented preparations was complex and time-consuming, requiring skilled knowledge of both chemistry and herbalism. One popular perfumed oil was made by combining rendered pork fat with rose petals, lavender flowers, and a small amount of honey. This mixture would be heated gently over a low fire for several hours, allowing the fat to absorb the fragrances and therapeutic properties of the herbs. The resulting oil had a rich, complex scent that was considered both luxurious and healthful, and it could be applied to the skin in small amounts to provide long-lasting fragrance. The medieval understanding of laundry and clothing care was based on principles that were quite different from our modern approaches, but they were remarkably effective given the materials and methods available. Clothing was washed much less frequently than we would consider normal today, partly because of the difficulty and expense of the washing process, but also because medieval people believed that excessive washing could damage the fabric and reduce the life of the garment. When clothing was washed, it was typically done as a major household event that involved the entire family and sometimes hired help. The process began with the collection of sufficient water, which had to be drawn from wells or streams and heated over fires in large cauldrons. The amount of fuel required to heat enough water for a full washing was considerable, making laundry an expensive and time-consuming undertaking that was not undertaken lightly. The soap used for washing clothes was often different from that used for personal hygiene, as it needed to be strong enough to remove dirt and stains from fabric without being so harsh as to damage the fibers. This laundry soap was typically made from a combination of animal fat, wood ash, and sometimes lime, creating a powerful cleaning agent that was quite effective at removing even stubborn stains. The soap was often made in large batches and stored in wooden barrels, where it would age and develop its cleaning properties over time. The actual washing process involved soaking the clothing in large wooden tubs filled with hot, soapy water, then agitating the garments by hand or with wooden paddles to work the soap through the fabric. This process required considerable physical effort and could take several hours to complete, particularly for heavily soiled items. The clothing would be scrubbed against rough wooden washboards or flat stones to remove stubborn stains, a process that was hard on both the fabric and the hands of the person doing the washing. After the initial washing and scrubbing, the clothes would be rinsed multiple times in clean water to remove all traces of soap and loosened dirt. This rinsing process was crucial, as any soap residue left in the fabric could cause irritation to the skin and would attract more dirt in the future. The final rinse was often done in running water, such as a stream or river, where the natural flow would help carry away the last traces of soap and debris. The sound of water flowing over stones and the gentle splashing of wet fabric created a peaceful rhythm that was both soothing and satisfying to those engaged in the work. The drying process for medieval laundry was entirely dependent on weather conditions and required careful planning and attention. Clothes were typically hung on wooden frames or spread across bushes and hedges, where they would be exposed to the sun and wind. The positioning of the drying clothes was important, as different fabrics required different conditions to dry properly without damage. Heavy woolen garments needed to be supported carefully to prevent stretching, while delicate linen items were often laid flat on clean grass or wooden boards to maintain their shape. During the drying process, the clothes would be turned and repositioned regularly to ensure even drying and to prevent the formation of wrinkles or creases. This task was often assigned to children or elderly members of the household, who would move slowly among the drying garments, checking their progress and making adjustments as needed. The scent of clean, sun-dried clothing was considered one of the most pleasant fragrances in the medieval household, and it was associated with feelings of comfort, cleanliness, and domestic harmony. The medieval approach to ironing and pressing clothes was accomplished through methods that were both ingenious and labor-intensive. Without electric irons, medieval people used various techniques to smooth wrinkles and create crisp, neat appearances in their clothing. The most common method involved the use of heated stones or metal implements that were warmed by the fire and then pressed against the fabric to smooth out wrinkles and creases. These primitive irons were often made from large, flat stones that had been carefully selected for their smooth surfaces and ability to retain heat. The stones would be heated in the coals of the fire until they reached the proper temperature, then wrapped in clean cloth to protect both the user's hands and the fabric being pressed. The process of ironing with heated stones required considerable skill and experience, as the temperature had to be judged carefully to avoid scorching the fabric while still providing enough heat to remove wrinkles effectively. For more delicate fabrics, medieval people developed techniques using moisture and pressure rather than heat. Damp clothes would be rolled tightly and placed under heavy weights, such as large stones or wooden beams, where the pressure would gradually smooth out wrinkles as the fabric dried. This method was particularly effective for linen garments, which responded well to the combination of moisture and pressure, emerging smooth and crisp after several hours under the weights. The medieval understanding of seasonal hygiene practices was deeply connected to the natural rhythms of the year and the changing availability of resources. Spring was considered the ideal time for thorough cleaning and renewal, both for the body and for the home. As the weather warmed and fresh herbs began to appear in gardens and meadows, people would undertake comprehensive cleaning rituals that were designed to purge the accumulated dirt and staleness of the long winter months. The Wunni spring cleaning ritual often began with the preparation of special bathing waters that incorporated the first fresh herbs of the season. Young nettle leaves, dandelion greens, and early mint were particularly prized for their purifying properties, and they would be gathered with great care and ceremony. These herbs would be steeped in hot water for several hours, creating concentrated infusions that were believed to have powerful cleansing and rejuvenating effects on both body and spirit. The actual spring bathing ritual was often performed outdoors, weather permitting, taking advantage of the warming sun and fresh air. Wooden tubs would be carried into private gardens or courtyards, where they would be filled with the herbal bathing waters and positioned to catch the gentle warmth of the spring sunshine. The experience of bathing outdoors, surrounded by the fresh scents of growing plants and the sounds of awakening nature, was considered both physically and spiritually renewing. Summer hygiene practices were adapted to the challenges of hot weather and increased physical activity. The medieval understanding of summer health emphasized the importance of staying cool and preventing the excessive buildup of heat in the body, which was believed to lead to various ailments and imbalances. Frequent washing with cool water was encouraged, particularly for the hands, face, and feet, which were considered the most important areas for maintaining comfort and health during the warm months. The preparation of cooling bathing waters for summer use involved the selection of herbs and flowers that were believed to have cooling properties. Mint, cucumber, and rose petals were particular favorites, as they provided both refreshing sensations and pleasant fragrances. These ingredients would be combined with cool spring water in large ceramic vessels, where they would be allowed to steep in the shade until the water had absorbed their essences. The resulting bathing water was considered both refreshing and therapeutic, providing relief from the heat while promoting overall health and being medieval people also understood the importance of protecting their skin from the effects of prolonged sun exposure, and they developed various methods for preventing sunburn and heat-related skin damage. Light, loose-fitting clothing was preferred during the summer months, as it allowed air to circulate around the body while providing protection from direct sunlight. The clothing was often made from linen or other light fabrics that were dyed in pale colors, as these were believed to reflect heat and light more effectively than darker hues. The use of various plant-based preparations for protecting and soothing sun-exposed skin was common during the medieval period. Aloe vera, which was cultivated in monastery gardens and wealthy households, was prized for its cooling and healing properties. The gel from aloe leaves would be applied directly to sunburned skin, providing immediate relief and promoting rapid healing. Other popular skin treatments for summer included preparations made from cucumber juice, rose water, and various cooling herbs that were believed to draw heat from the body and restore balance to the skin. Autumn hygiene practices were focused on preparing the body for the challenges of the approaching winter months. This season was considered the ideal time for strengthening and fortifying treatments that would help maintain health and cleanliness during the cold, dark months ahead. The preparation of winter supplies, including soaps, oils, and herbal preparations, was a major undertaking that occupied much of the autumn season. The process of making winter soap was typically begun in early autumn, when the weather was still warm enough to work comfortably outdoors, but cool enough to prevent the soap from spoiling during the long curing process. The soap-making process required careful timing and skilled knowledge, as the various ingredients had to be combined in precise proportions and heated to exact temperatures to create a product that would be both effective and safe to use. The collection and preparation of herbs for winter use was another important autumn activity that required careful planning and execution. Herbs had to be harvested at the peak of their potency, dried under ideal conditions, and stored in ways that would preserve their therapeutic properties throughout the winter months. The process of drying herbs was often done in special rooms or attics that provided the proper combination of air circulation and protection from moisture. Winter hygiene practices were necessarily adapted to the harsh conditions of the cold season, when water was often frozen and fuel for heating was precious and scarce. The medieval approach to winter cleanliness emphasized conservation and efficiency, making the most of limited resources while maintaining essential hygiene standards. Bathing became less frequent during the winter months, but when it did occur, it was often a more elaborate and ceremonial affair that provided both physical cleansing and psychological comfort during the dark, cold days. The preparation of winter bathing waters involved the use of dried herbs and stored preparations that had been carefully preserved from the autumn harvest. These materials would be combined with precious hot water to create warming, therapeutic baths that were believed to promote both physical health and mental well-being. The steam from these hot baths would fill the bathing chamber with aromatic vapors that were considered beneficial for respiratory health and general vitality. Medieval people also understood the importance of maintaining circulation and warmth during the cold months, and they developed various techniques for promoting blood flow and preventing the stagnation that was believed to lead to illness. Vigorous rubbing of the skin with rough cloths or brushes was a common practice, as it was believed to stimulate circulation and promote the healthy flow of bodily humors. This practice was often performed in front of a warm fire where the heat would enhance the beneficial effects of the massage. The medieval institution of public bathing houses represented a fascinating aspect of community hygiene practices that brought together people from all social classes in shared spaces dedicated to cleanliness and health. These establishments, known as bathhouses or stews, were found in most medieval towns and cities, and they served as important social and cultural centers as well as places for personal hygiene. The bathhouses were typically built near sources of fresh water and were designed to accommodate large numbers of people in various stages of the bathing process. The typical medieval bathhouse was a complex structure that included multiple rooms for different aspects of the bathing ritual. The main bathing hall contained several large wooden tubs that could accommodate multiple bathers, while smaller, more private chambers were available for those who could afford the additional cost. The bathhouse also included facilities for heating water, preparing herbal treatments, and storing the various supplies needed for the bathing process. The social aspect of bathhouse culture was perhaps as important as the hygienic benefits, as these establishments provided opportunities for people to gather, share news, conduct business, and participate in community life. The relaxed, informal atmosphere of the bathhouse encouraged conversation and social interaction, and many important business deals and social arrangements were negotiated in the warm, steamy environment of the bathing halls. The operation of a medieval bathhouse required skilled staff who understood the complex requirements of managing multiple bathing facilities, maintaining proper water temperatures, and preparing the various herbal treatments and services that customers expected. The bathhouse keeper was typically a person of considerable knowledge and experience, skilled in the arts of heating water, mixing bathing preparations, and managing the complex logistics of serving multiple customers simultaneously. The daily routine of a medieval bathhouse began before dawn, with the lighting of fires and the heating of the first batches of water for the day. The preparation of the various herbal bathing waters and treatments required careful attention to detail, as each preparation had to be mixed in the proper proportions and heated to the correct temperature. The staff would also prepare the bathing chambers, cleaning the tubs, arranging fresh linens, and ensuring that all necessary supplies were readily available. As the morning progressed and the first customers began to arrive at the bathhouse, the atmosphere would gradually transform from the quiet efficiency of preparation to the gentle bustle of social activity. The early customers were often merchants and craftsmen who needed to prepare for important business meetings or social occasions, and they would arrive with their own supplies of soaps, oils, and personal linens. The bathhouse attendants would greet each customer with practiced courtesy, guiding them to appropriate bathing facilities and ensuring that their specific needs and preferences were accommodated. The process of entering a medieval bathhouse was itself a ritual that required proper etiquette and understanding of social customs. Customers would typically pay their fees at the entrance, where the bathhouse keeper would assess their social status and financial means to determine what level of service they would receive. Wealthy patrons might be escorted to private chambers with individual tubs and personal attendants, while common folk would be directed to the communal bathing areas where several people would share the same facilities. The communal bathing areas were large, steamy rooms filled with wooden tubs of various sizes, each designed to accommodate different numbers of bathers. The largest tubs could hold 6 or 8 people comfortably, and it was common for strangers to share the same bathing space, creating opportunities for conversation and social interaction that were rare in other aspects of medieval life. The warm, relaxing environment of the bathhouse encouraged a sense of equality and community that transcended normal social boundaries. The water in the bathhouse tubs was typically changed several times throughout the day, but the medieval understanding of cleanliness allowed for multiple bathers to use the same water before it was considered necessary to replace it. This practice was not considered unsanitary by medieval standards, as the hot water and aromatic herbs were, believed to have purifying properties that would cleanse both the water and the bathers. The process of changing the water was a major undertaking that required the coordinated efforts of several attendants working together to drain the used water and refill the tubs with fresh, heated water. The heating system used in medieval bathhouses was often an impressive feat of engineering that involved complex networks of pipes, furnaces, and water reservoirs. The furnaces were typically located in the basement or lower levels of the building, where they would heat water in large cauldrons or boilers. The hot water would then be transported through a system of pipes and channels to the various bathing chambers, where it would fill the tubs and maintain the warm, steamy atmosphere that was essential for the bathing experience. The maintenance of proper temperature in the bathhouse was a skilled art that required constant attention and adjustment. The bathhouse staff would monitor the temperature of the water in each tub, adding hot water as needed to maintain the ideal bathing conditions. The temperature was judged by hand, as there were no thermometers available, and experienced attendants could determine the perfect temperature through years of practice and experience. The various services offered at medieval bathhouses went far beyond simple bathing, encompassing a wide range of personal care and therapeutic treatments. Many bathhouses employed skilled practitioners who could provide massages, hair treatments, and various forms of medical therapy. These services were considered essential for maintaining health and well-being, and they were often prescribed by physicians as treatments for various ailments and conditions. The massage techniques used in medieval bathhouses were based on ancient traditions that had been passed down through generations of skilled practitioners. The masseurs would use their hands and sometimes specially designed tools to work the muscles and joints of their clients, promoting circulation and relieving tension. The massage was often performed using various oils and unguents that were believed to have therapeutic properties, and the combination of skilled touch and aromatic preparations created a deeply relaxing and restorative experience. Hair care services at the bathhouse were particularly elaborate and time-consuming, often involving multiple stages of washing, conditioning, and styling. The process would begin with a thorough washing, using various herbal preparations that were designed to cleanse the hair and scalp while promoting health and growth. The hair would then be conditioned with oils and other treatments that were carefully selected based on the individual's hair type and specific needs. The medieval understanding of medical hygiene was deeply intertwined with the broader concepts of health and disease that dominated medical thinking during this period. Physicians and other medical practitioners understood that cleanliness played an important role in preventing disease and promoting healing, but their approach to hygiene was based on theories and practices that were quite different from modern medical knowledge. The concept of the four humors continued to influence medical hygiene practices, with different cleansing methods being prescribed based on the individual's humoral constitution and the nature of their ailments. Medical texts from the medieval period contained detailed instructions for various hygiene practices that were believed to be essential for maintaining health and preventing disease. These texts often emphasize the importance of regular washing, particularly of the hands and face, as a means of preventing the spread of disease and maintaining the proper balance of bodily humors. The washing was to be performed with specific types of water and cleansing agents that were selected based on the individual's health needs and the season of the year. The preparation of medicinal bathing waters was a complex process that required extensive knowledge of herbal medicine and chemistry. Physicians would prescribe specific combinations of herbs, minerals, and other substances that were to be added to bathing water to create therapeutic treatments for various conditions. These prescriptions were often highly detailed, specifying exact proportions of ingredients, proper preparation methods, and specific bathing procedures that were to be followed for maximum therapeutic benefit. One common medicinal bathing treatment involved the use of sulfur-rich waters that were believed to have powerful healing properties for skin conditions and joint ailments. These waters were often found at natural hot springs, but they could also be artificially created by adding sulfur compounds to regular bathing water. The process of preparing sulfur baths required careful attention to safety, as the sulfur could produce toxic gases if not handled properly, and the bathing had to be conducted in well-ventilated areas to prevent dangerous accumulations of sulfur vapors. Another popular medicinal bathing treatment used waters that had been infused with various metallic substances, such as iron, copper, or silver. These metal-infused waters were believed to have specific therapeutic properties that could be absorbed through the skin during bathing. Iron-infused waters were prescribed for patients who were believed to suffer from weakness or anemia, while copper-infused waters were used to treat skin conditions and promote healing of wounds and sores. The medieval monastery represented perhaps the most systematic and disciplined approach to hygiene practices during this period. Monastic communities developed elaborate rules and customs regarding cleanliness that were based on both practical necessity and spiritual symbolism. The monastic understanding of hygiene was deeply connected to concepts of purity, discipline, and spiritual development, and the daily hygiene practices of monks and nuns were considered essential aspects of their religious observance. The typical medieval monastery included sophisticated facilities for hygiene and sanitation that were often more advanced than those found in secular communities. The monastery would typically have a dedicated washing area known as the lavatorium, where the monks would perform their daily ablutions according to strict schedules and procedures. The lavatorium was often a beautiful and well-designed space that reflected the importance of cleanliness in monastic life. The daily hygiene routine in a medieval monastery was carefully regulated by the rule of the religious order, which specified when, where, and how various cleansing activities were to be performed. The monks would typically wake before dawn and begin their day with the washing of hands and face, a practice that was both practical and symbolic. This morning washing was considered a preparation for the day's spiritual activities, and it was performed with the same reverence and attention that was given to other aspects of monastic ritual. The monastic approach to bathing was particularly interesting, as it balanced the practical need for cleanliness with concerns about excessive attention to bodily comfort and vanity. Most monastic rules allowed for regular bathing, but they specified that it should be performed in a simple, utilitarian manner without luxury or excessive pleasure. The baths were to be taken at prescribed times, often in connection with religious festivals or seasonal changes, and they were to be conducted in a spirit of humility and Self-discipline. The preparation of bathing facilities in a monastery was typically the responsibility of specific members of the community who had been trained in the proper procedures and techniques. These individuals would be responsible for heating water, preparing any necessary herbal additives, and ensuring that the bathing facilities were clean and properly maintained. The preparation work was considered a form of service to the community, and it was performed with the same dedication and attention to detail that was given to other aspects of monastic life. The monastic understanding of seasonal hygiene was particularly well developed, as the regular rhythm of monastic life provided opportunities for careful observation and systematic approach to health maintenance. The monks would adjust their hygiene practices according to the changing seasons, using different herbs and treatments that were appropriate for the time of year. Spring cleaning rituals in the monastery were often elaborate affairs that involved the entire community in comprehensive cleansing of both personal and communal spaces. The medieval monastery also served as a center for the development and preservation of hygiene knowledge, as many monasteries maintained extensive libraries and scriptoriums where medical and hygiene texts were copied and preserved. Monks who were skilled in medicine and natural philosophy would often experiment with different hygiene techniques and treatments, recording their observations and discoveries in detailed manuscripts that would be shared with other monasteries and medical practitioners. The monastic approach to dental hygiene was particularly systematic, as the monks understood the importance of oral health for overall well-being and their ability to participate fully in the communal singing and chanting that were central to monastic worship. The monks would typically clean their teeth using various herbal preparations that were made from plants grown in the monastery gardens, and they would perform this cleaning at regular intervals throughout the day. The preparation of herbal dental treatments in the monastery was often a complex process that involved the careful selection and processing of various plants and minerals. The monks would grow specific herbs in their gardens that were known for their dental health benefits, and they would harvest these plants at the proper times to ensure maximum potency. The herbs would then be processed using various techniques, including drying, grinding, and extraction, to create powders, pastes, and rinses that could be used for dental care. The monastery gardens themselves were often designed specifically to support the community's hygiene and health needs, with carefully planned sections devoted to different types of medicinal and aromatic plants. The monks would cultivate herbs for bathing, dental care, soap making, and various therapeutic treatments, creating self-sufficient systems that could provide for all of their hygiene needs without relying on outside sources. The knowledge of plant cultivation and processing that was developed in these monastery gardens was often shared with surrounding communities, contributing to the broader understanding of herbal medicine and natural hygiene practices. The seasonal rhythm of monastery life provided natural opportunities for major hygiene and cleaning activities that would benefit the entire community. Spring was typically the time for comprehensive cleaning of all facilities, including the washing of bedding, clothing, and personal items that had accumulated dirt and odors during the winter months. These spring cleaning activities were often conducted as community exercises that brought the entire monastery together in shared labor and mutual support throughout the summer months. In the monastery brought their own unique hygiene challenges and opportunities. As the warm weather made frequent, washing more necessary while also providing ideal conditions for the cultivation and processing of herbs and other materials needed for hygiene preparations. The monks would often work in the early morning hours when the air was still cool and fresh to gather herbs and prepare the various treatments and preparations that would be needed throughout the year. The scent of herbs drying in the monastery workshops would fill the air with pleasant fragrances that were both practical and spiritually uplifting. The autumn season was particularly important for monastery hygiene preparations, as this was the time when the final harvest of herbs would be gathered and processed for winter storage. The monks would work together to prepare large quantities of soaps, oils, and other hygiene supplies that would sustain the community through the cold months ahead. The process of making these preparations was often accompanied by prayers and meditations that connected the physical work with the spiritual purposes of monastic life. The noble classes of medieval society developed perhaps the most elaborate and sophisticated hygiene practices of their time, driven by both practical necessity and the demands of social status. The daily hygiene routines of nobles were complex affairs that involved multiple servants, expensive materials, and considerable time and attention. These routines were not merely about cleanliness, but were important expressions of wealth, refinement, and social position that helped to maintain the hierarchical structure of medieval society. The morning hygiene routine of a medieval noble would typically begin with the arrival of personal servants who would prepare the various waters, oils, and implements needed for the day's cleansing activities. The process would start with the preparation of washing water, which was often enhanced with rose petals, lavender, or other aromatic materials that had been selected specifically for their pleasant scent and supposed therapeutic properties. The water would be heated to the perfect temperature and presented in beautiful ceramic or metal basins that were themselves works of art. The actual washing process for a noble was a carefully choreographed ritual that involved multiple steps and the use of various specialized tools and materials. The process would begin with the washing of hands and face, using fine soaps that had been imported from distant lands or prepared by skilled artisans using the most expensive ingredients available. The soap would be applied using soft cloths made from the finest linen or silk, and the washing would be performed with gentle, careful movements that were designed to cleanse without causing any discomfort or irritation. The care of the hair was perhaps the most elaborate aspect of noble hygiene, as long, beautiful hair was considered one of the most important indicators of nobility and refinement. The daily hair care routine could take several hours to complete and involved the use of various brushes, combs, and styling implements that were often made from precious materials such as ivory, silver, or gold. The process would begin with careful brushing to remove any tangles or debris, followed by the application of various oils and treatments that were designed to promote health, shine, and manageability. The preparation of hair treatments for nobles was a skilled craft that required extensive knowledge of herbal medicine and cosmetic chemistry. The treatments were often made from combinations of expensive ingredients such as rare oils, precious spices, and exotic herbs that had been imported from distant lands at great expense. These treatments were prepared by skilled servants who had been trained in the complex processes required to create effective and pleasant-smelling hair care products. The washing of noble hair was an elaborate ceremony that typically took place once or twice a week, depending on the season and the individual's social calendar. The process would begin with the preparation of special washing waters that had been infused with various herbs and flowers selected for their cleansing and conditioning properties. The hair would be washed using gentle massaging motions that were designed to cleanse thoroughly while providing a relaxing and pleasant experience. The drying and styling of noble hair was perhaps the most time-consuming aspect of the entire process, as the hair had to be dried carefully to prevent damage, and then styled in the elaborate arrangements that were fashionable among the upper classes. The drying process often involved sitting near a warm fire while servants used fans or other implements to circulate air around the hair, speeding the drying process while preventing overheating or damage. The styling process required considerable skill and creativity, as the fashionable hairstyles of the period were often quite complex and required the use of various pins, ribbons, and other decorative elements. The use of perfumes and fragrances among the noble classes was an important aspect of their hygiene practices, as pleasant scents were considered essential for maintaining social status and attracting favorable attention. The perfumes used by medieval nobles were quite different from modern fragrances, as they were typically made from natural ingredients such as flowers, herbs, spices, and animal products that were combined to create complex and long-lasting scents. Preparation of perfumes for noble use was a highly skilled craft that required extensive knowledge of chemistry, botany, and the properties of various aromatic materials. The perfume makers would often spend months or even years developing a single fragrance, experimenting with different combinations of ingredients and allowing the mixtures to age and develop their full aromatic potential. The most skilled perfume makers were highly valued members of noble households, and their services were often sought by multiple families and individuals. The application of perfumes among the nobility was itself a ritual that required careful attention to proper technique and timing. The perfumes were typically applied to specific areas of the body, such as the wrists, neck, and temples, where the warmth of the body would help to release the fragrance gradually throughout the day. The amount of perfume used was carefully controlled, as too much could be overpowering and socially inappropriate, while too little might not provide the desired effect. The storage and preservation of perfumes was another important aspect of noble hygiene practices, as these expensive preparations had to be protected from light, heat, and other factors that could cause them to deteriorate or lose their effectiveness. The perfumes were typically stored in beautiful containers made from precious materials such as crystal, silver, or gold, and these containers were often decorated with elaborate designs that reflected the wealth and taste of their owners. The regional variations in medieval hygiene practices were fascinating examples of how local climate, available resources, and cultural traditions influenced the development of different approaches to cleanliness and personal care. The hygiene practices of northern European countries, for example, were necessarily adapted to the challenges of cold weather and limited sunlight, while the practices of Mediterranean regions took advantage of warmer climates and different plant resources. In the colder regions of northern Europe, medieval people developed hygiene practices that emphasized warmth and protection from the harsh elements. The use of animal fats and oils was more common in these regions, as these materials provided better protection against cold and wind than the lighter plant-based preparations that were popular in warmer climates. The bathing practices of northern Europeans were often adapted to conserve heat and fuel, with shorter, more efficient washing routines that accomplished the necessary cleansing without excessive exposure to cold air. The Scandinavian countries developed particularly interesting approaches to hygiene that took advantage of their unique natural resources and climate conditions. The use of steam baths, similar to modern saunas, was common in these regions, as the combination of heat and humidity provided effective cleansing while also offering protection from the cold. These steam baths were often constructed using local materials such as stone and wood, and they were heated using fires that burned the abundant forests of the region. The Mediterranean regions of Europe developed hygiene practices that were influenced by their warmer climate and different cultural traditions. The abundant sunshine and warmer temperatures of these regions made frequent bathing more practical and comfortable, and the local plant life provided different resources for hygiene preparations. The use of olive oil was particularly common in Mediterranean hygiene practices, as this readily available resource provided excellent moisturizing and conditioning properties for both skin and hair. The influence of Islamic culture on medieval European hygiene practices was particularly strong in regions such as Spain and southern Italy, where centuries of contact and cultural exchange had introduced new techniques and materials. The Islamic emphasis on cleanliness and purification had a significant impact on local hygiene practices, introducing new methods of soap making, perfume preparation, and bathing techniques that were gradually adopted by the local population. The trade routes that connected different regions of Europe also played an important role in the spread of hygiene practices and materials. Merchants and travelers would carry new techniques and ingredients from one region to another, creating gradual exchange of knowledge and practices that enriched the hygiene traditions of all regions. The spice trade was particularly important in this regard, as it brought new aromatic materials and medicinal herbs to regions where they had never been available before. The development of urban centers during the medieval period created new challenges and opportunities for hygiene practices, as the concentration of large populations in relatively small areas required new approaches to cleanliness and sanitation. The growth of cities led to the development of more sophisticated bathing facilities, including public bathhouses and private facilities for the wealthy, while also creating new problems related to waste disposal and water supply. The guild system that developed in medieval cities also played an important role in the standardization and improvement of hygiene practices, as specialized craftsmen organized themselves into professional associations that established standards for their products and services. The soap makers, perfume makers, and bathhouse keepers all developed their own guilds, which helped to ensure quality and consistency in their products, while also promoting innovation and improvement in their techniques. The seasonal markets and fairs that were common in medieval cities provided opportunities for the exchange of hygiene-related goods and knowledge, as merchants from different regions would gather to trade their products and share information about new techniques and materials. These markets were often the first places where new hygiene innovations would be introduced to a region, and they played an important role in the gradual improvement and standardization of hygiene practices throughout Europe. The influence of the Christian Church on medieval hygiene practices was complex and sometimes contradictory, as religious teachings both encouraged cleanliness as a spiritual virtue and warned against excessive attention to bodily comfort and vanity. The Church's emphasis on modesty and simplicity often conflicted with the elaborate hygiene practices of the wealthy, creating tension between religious ideals and practical necessities. The development of hospitals and other charitable institutions under church sponsorship also played an important role in the advancement of hygiene practices, as these institutions required systematic approaches to cleanliness and sanitation to care for their patients effectively. The medical knowledge and hygiene practices that were developed in these religious institutions often spread to the broader community, contributing to the general improvement of public health and hygiene standards. The pilgrimage routes that crisscrossed medieval Europe created unique opportunities for the exchange of hygiene knowledge and practices, as travelers from different regions would share their customs and techniques with fellow pilgrims and local communities along the way. The hostels and inns that served pilgrims often became centers for the dissemination of new hygiene practices, as travelers would teach local innkeepers and other pilgrims about the cleansing methods and materials that were popular in their home regions. The practice of carrying small hygiene kits during long journeys was common among medieval pilgrims and other travelers, as they understood the importance of maintaining cleanliness even while away from home. These traveling hygiene kits typically contain small pieces of soap, bundles of aromatic herbs, and other portable cleansing materials that could be used to maintain basic hygiene standards during extended periods of travel. The preparation of these kits was often a careful process that involved selecting materials that would remain stable and effective over long periods of time and varying weather conditions. The development of portable bathing solutions for travelers was an interesting aspect of medieval hygiene innovation, as medieval people understood the challenges of maintaining cleanliness while on the road. Collapsible washing basins made from leather or fabric were common among wealthy travelers, while simpler solutions such as waterproof cloths and portable soap containers were used by those with more modest means. These innovations reflected the medieval understanding that hygiene was important even during travel, and that creative solutions were needed to maintain cleanliness under challenging conditions. The influence of medieval universities on hygiene practices was significant, as these institutions brought together scholars and students from different regions who would share their knowledge and practices with each other. The medical schools that were established at many universities became centers for the development of new hygiene theories and practices, as scholars would study ancient texts and conduct their own experiments to better understand the relationship between cleanliness and health. The academic study of hygiene in medieval universities was often connected to broader studies of medicine, natural philosophy, and even theology, as scholars sought to understand the role of cleanliness in maintaining both physical and spiritual health. The treatises and texts that were produced by university scholars often contained detailed discussions of hygiene practices, including instructions for preparing various cleansing materials and performing different types of bathing and washing. Rituals. The translation and preservation of ancient texts on hygiene and medicine was another important contribution of medieval universities as scholars worked to make the wisdom of Greek, Roman, and Islamic authors available to European readers. These translations often included commentaries and additions that reflected the current understanding of hygiene practices, creating new syntheses of ancient wisdom and medieval innovation. Among the most unusual hygiene practices of the medieval period were those that involved the use of various animal products and substances that would seem quite strange to modern sensibilities. The use of urine for various cleansing and therapeutic purposes was surprisingly common, as medieval people believed that certain types of urine possessed special properties that could promote health and cleanliness. Fresh urine was often used for washing hair, as it was believed to remove dirt and oils while adding shine and manageability. The practice of using various animal fats and oils for skin care was also quite common, with different types of fat being preferred for different purposes and seasons. Bear fat was particularly prized for its supposed ability to protect the skin from cold weather and prevent chapping, while goose fat was used to create waterproof barriers that could protect the skin from moisture and wind. These animal-based preparations were often combined with herbs and other aromatic materials to create complex skin care treatments that were both functional and pleasant to use without the use of various insects and other small creatures for hygiene. Purposes was another unusual aspect of medieval practices that reflected the creative ways in which people used available resources. Certain types of beetles were believed to produce oils that could be used for hair care, while other insects were used to create dyes and pigments that could be used for cosmetic purposes. The collection and processing of these materials required specialized knowledge and techniques that were often passed down through families and communities. The medieval understanding of the relationship between diet and hygiene was quite sophisticated, as people recognized that what they ate could affect their body odor, skin condition, and overall cleanliness. Certain foods were believed to promote pleasant body odors, while others were thought to create unpleasant smells that could be difficult to eliminate through washing alone. The consumption of aromatic herbs and spices was often recommended as a way to improve natural body scent, while foods that were believed to produce unpleasant odors were sometimes avoided. Before important social occasions, the practice of using various flowers and plants to create natural deodorants was common among medieval people, who understood that certain plant materials could help to control body odor and create pleasant fragrances. Rose petals, lavender flowers, and mint leaves were often crushed and applied directly to the skin, or they were sewn into small sachets that could be worn close to the body. These natural deodorants were not only functional, but also provided pleasant sensory experiences that were valued for their own sake. The development of specialized hygiene practices for different occupations was another interesting aspect of medieval cleanliness culture, as people recognized that different types of work created different hygiene challenges and requirements. Blacksmiths, for example, developed techniques for removing the soot and grime that accumulated from their work with fire and metal, while farmers developed methods for dealing with the dirt and odors that came from working with animals and soil. The hygiene practices of medieval soldiers and knights were particularly specialized, as these individuals had to maintain cleanliness under the challenging conditions of military campaigns and warfare. The development of portable hygiene kits for military use was an important innovation that allowed soldiers to maintain basic cleanliness even while away from home for extended periods. These kits often included specialized soaps that could be used with cold water, as well as various oils and treatments that could help to prevent and treat the skin problems that were common among soldiers. The practice of using various types of sand and abrasive materials for cleansing was common among medieval people, who understood that these materials could be effective for removing stubborn dirt and stains. Different types of sand were preferred for different purposes, with fine, clean sand being used for delicate skin care, while coarser materials were used for more challenging cleaning tasks. The preparation and selection of these abrasive materials required careful attention to their cleanliness and suitability for different types of use. The medieval understanding of the relationship between cleanliness and social status was complex and nuanced, as people recognized that hygiene practices could serve as important indicators of wealth, education, and social position. The ability to maintain high standards of cleanliness was often seen as a mark of refinement and civilization, while poor hygiene was associated with poverty, ignorance, and social inferiority. This understanding created strong incentives for people to maintain the best hygiene standards that their circumstances would allow. The development of hygiene-related crafts and professions was an important aspect of medieval economic life, as the growing demand for cleanliness-related products and services created opportunities for skilled artisans and entrepreneurs. The soap makers, perfume makers, bathhouse keepers, and other hygiene professionals formed an important part of the medieval economy, and their skills and knowledge were highly valued by their communities. The seasonal festivals and celebrations that were common in medieval communities often included special hygiene rituals and customs that reflected the importance of cleanliness in social and religious life. Spring festivals, for example, often included community bathing rituals that symbolized renewal and purification, while harvest festivals might include special cleansing ceremonies that prepared people for the coming winter months. The practice of using various types of music and singing during bathing and other hygiene activities was common in medieval communities, as people understood that these activities could make cleansing routines more pleasant and enjoyable. The songs and chants that were sung during bathing often included references to cleanliness, purity, and renewal, creating connections between physical cleansing and spiritual purification. As our journey through the fascinating world of medieval hygiene practices draws to a gentle close, we can imagine the soft evening light filtering through the windows of that small village where we began our exploration. The day's activities are winding down, and the people are preparing for the peaceful rest that will restore their bodies and spirits for another day of simple, methodical living. The scent of wood smoke from cooking fires mingles with the gentle fragrances of herbs and flowers that have been part of their daily cleansing rituals, creating an atmosphere of comfort and contentment that speaks to the timeless human desire for cleanliness and care. In the merchant's house, Margaret is completing her evening ablutions, washing her hands and face with the same careful attention that she brought to her morning routine. The water in her basin reflects the flickering light of candles, creating gentle patterns that dance across the surface as she moves. The simple act of cleansing becomes a moment of quiet meditation, a peaceful transition from the activities of the day to the rest of the night. Throughout the village, similar scenes are unfolding as people prepare for sleep, each following the hygiene customs and practices that have been passed down through generations of their families. The rhythms of medieval life, with their gentle pace and careful attention to the simple necessities of daily existence, created a framework for living that honored both the body and the spirit through the practice of mindful cleanliness. The castle on the hill is settling into its own evening routine, with servants extinguishing the fires that heated the bathing waters and carefully storing the precious soaps and oils that will be needed for tomorrow's rituals. The elaborate ceremonies of noble hygiene are giving way to the quiet simplicity of nighttime rest, as even the wealthy and powerful recognize the need for peaceful sleep and gentle restoration. In the monastery, the monks are completing their final prayers of the day, their voices joining in harmonious chants that echo through the stone corridors and chambers. Their daily hygiene practices, performed with the same reverence and attention that they bring to their spiritual disciplines, have prepared them for the peaceful rest that will restore their strength for tomorrow's service and contemplation. The bathhouses of the town are closing their doors for the night, their steamy chambers gradually cooling as the fires are banked and the water is allowed to rest. The social connections and community bonds that were strengthened during the day's bathing activities will continue to enrich the lives of the townspeople, creating networks of friendship and mutual support that extend far beyond the walls of the bathing establishments. As you allow yourself to sink deeper into the comfortable embrace of your own bed, feeling the gentle weight of warm blankets and the soft support of your pillows, you can carry with you the peaceful rhythms of medieval life and the simple satisfaction that comes from caring for the body with mindful attention and gentle respect. The warm, steamy atmosphere of the medieval bathhouse, the soothing sense of herbs and flowers, and the quiet conversations of people sharing the simple pleasure of cleanliness can accompany you into your dreams, where time moves slowly and the gentle pace of life allows for deep rest and peaceful restoration. Let the images of flowing water, gentle steam, and aromatic herbs fill your mind as your breathing becomes slower and deeper, each breath carrying you further into the realm of peaceful sleep. The soft sounds of water lapping against the sides of wooden tubs, the gentle whisper of steam rising from warm baths, and the quiet rustle of linen towels create a symphony of comfort that lulls your mind into the deepest relaxation. Allow yourself to float on the warm currents of medieval bathing waters, surrounded by the gentle care and attention that our ancestors brought to the simple act of maintaining cleanliness and health. And let these peaceful sensations carry you into the most restful and restorative sleep, where your body and mind can find the renewal and refreshment that comes from surrendering completely to the gentle embrace of peaceful dreams. Sleep well, dear listener, and may your dreams be filled with the gentle rhythms of simpler times, the soothing comfort of warm water and aromatic herbs, and the peaceful satisfaction that comes from caring for yourself with the same mindful attention that our medieval ancestors brought to their daily rituals of cleanliness and care.